I'm Martin Chapin McKenzie. How y'all?
And
John McKenzie, younger brother.
And I'm Deborah Hotchkiss, Martin's wife.
okay, Martin and John are great-grandsons of our founder. Great-great-grandsons, right?
Yeah, so-
Two greats. Great-great-grandsons of our founder, Martin Chapin. And we're happy to have you with us because we're trying to get our history lined up and find out a little bit more about our background.
What we don't record, we lose.
That's right, absolutely. John, I don't know which one's the oldest. I guess Martin is, but John is the
John is the more
historian.
distinguished one. I'm the older. I have not grown up yet.
John, tell us a little bit about the history of the family now, from Martin. Your grandmother was Miss Annie.
Right. Annie Gregory.
Annie Gregory
This
McKenzie.
was her maiden name.
Right.
And she was from South Union County, a place called Sandtuck. And she was one of 10, I think the oldest. And her grandparents were Martin and Laura Benjamin Chapin.
Okay.
And they moved down from Cortland, New York, early mid 1800s, because of a recommendation to go to a milder climate. I think he had some sort of breathing difficulties, and they recommended the pine woods. And at the time, Austin was apparently just that. And he was great friends with the Summer family over in Pomeria. In fact, he's buried in their arboretum over there.
Have you been to the cemetery there?
Yes, not recently, but it's
I think
It's
it's been I think they've done some work and maybe put the railing back up that had kind of been knocked
yeah.
down.
Well, I had stopped in years ago and left a note to contact me if we could be of any financial support or anything like that. And I never heard back from the current family,
Okay.
who's there in the old summer home. But,
Now, Miss Annie had your father and other children?
yes, one other, his sister, Eppie Elizabeth. And let's see, Dad was born in 1914, and she was 3 or 4 years after that. His father was Sultan West Portland McKenzie. From the family actually was originally from around Fort Mott, Buckhead Creek, that area of what was then Orangeburg County. It's now Calhoun. But they, original ancestor of the McKenzies, as early as I can find him, was about 1760, 64. I think the first recorded grant I can find of property in his name, 1764. There probably were more, but they left from the courthouse in Orangeburg in 65. But over time, they moved across the river, as they call it, into the area around Gadsden. And let's see, the original S.W. McKenzie was a physician. He was a graduate of the University of Pennsylvania Medical College in Philadelphia, and finished just about the time the war broke out and was able to get home. But and of course he ran a country practice there in the area around Gadsden. Eastover is about 7 or 8 miles from there, maybe less. Eastover, of course, is where Miss Annie, my grandmother that we were talking about, where they lived. And the reason, of course, they were there was she married Dr. McKenzie's son, who was S.W. Jr. at the time. And he had a mercantile business at Eastover, which was a rail side. There they had a gin and a press and everything required for,
They're similar to what we had here.
exactly. It was a lot like it. It was a stop on the railway.
And you were telling me about a name change.
Oh, yeah, my father, of course, at the time was Sultan Westmoreland McKenzie Jr. for his father. And over, let's see, 1919, my grandfather died. I think my father was 5 at the time. And his mother, my grandmother, never remarried. She had a whole life, 60-something years beyond that. She died in 1983.
At 101?
100 and, was it 103?
Something like that.
102 or 103, somewhere along there.
Her husband, we think, died of sepsis. We're not really sure exactly what precipitated all that, but I just want to put that in.
And of course, well, they all had malaria, so I've heard also that it was, that played a role in his poor health. But anyway, father attended Clemson College, A&M or whatever it was, Clemson A&M, I think it was, agriculture and military. And like everyone else that graduated from there, he left with a lieutenant's commission in the Army. And when the Second World War came along, he was activated and sent overseas. And part of that involved signing a power of attorney over to his mother, because his father's will left her a life estate. And I don't know how familiar you are with all that sort of thing, but it's very difficult, I think, to make a living. Well, she taught piano, that was one way. And but she managed to keep most of the property together for quite a while. There were about 800 acres, I think, all total. And anyway, when he left, she did what she thought was the best thing to do, which was to sue my father and his younger sister, because they were the heirs of the property, to get control of the property and in order to sell some portion of it to sustain them and herself. So she did. And some of the paperwork to that that had to be filed, of course, it had to be filed under the heirs' names. And when my father was working on her estate, he got some of the paperwork that was filed at the time all this took place. And in that paperwork, there were numerous references to Sultan Westmoreland McKenzie Jr. And I can remember out in the margin, the first entry I saw of that is in his handwriting, "Who the hell is this?" As Martin told you a while ago, Miss Annie had a great deal of love and respect for her grandfather, Martin Chapin. So without so much as a legal or a technical by your leave, she started calling Sultan Westmoreland McKenzie Jr. I think he actually went by nickname Teddy, they called him. She started formally referring to Teddy as Martin Chapin McKenzie.
Or just Chapin for short.
Or just Chapin, I mean, they just called him Chapin. And over time, it stuck. And so when he went in the service and everything else, apparently there was no birth certificates involved or anything. He went as Lieutenant Martin Chapin McKenzie. And
So he just changed his name without any kind of...
He didn't even know. He didn't know.
He didn't know until he was working on her estate, in 1984, I guess, that his real name was...
He was already retired.
He didn't even know what his real name was.
No, he didn't know.
It's interesting.
But, it's hard to blame her. She was she was on her own, basically.
But she spent most of her life alone, because
Yes, as a widow, and, she did the best she could, but, she couldn't dispose of any property or anything, because nothing material basically was left to her. It was all left to S.W. Jr. and to Eddie. So,
now Effie didn't have any children. Or
no,
anything.
she never married.
She never married.
She was, stayed right there in Eastover.
Mhm.
And,
So when you got together with Miss Annie, what did she talk about? Did she reminisce a lot about?
Oh, I mean,
her father?
she doted on Martin Chapin. And referred to Dad as Chapin instead of Mac, like everybody else did. And she talked about his lung thing, his lung injuries, or his respiratory issues. And that she would remember as a child getting under a blanket with Martin Chapin and a bucket of longleaf pine tar and dropping a lit coal into it and the fumes coming off, because they were under the impression that inhalation of pine smoke helped improve respiratory function. And I
That
just
would
sat back.
essentially have killed me, I'm sure.
Folk medicine, I don't know, but it wasn't their idea as much as just popular opinion back in the days. She talked about her grandmother, Emma Chapin, as someone who, in today's world, we talk about massage therapy, but in her time, she did that where animals were concerned as far as manipulating hips back into, or whatever back into joints and that type of thing. And was evidently very good at it, being able to sort out what all was wrong with an animal, really going by intuition and feel and just palpitation. She never had any, that I know of, formal training in veterinary science, but she did a pretty good job about animals and some people, as far as just rearranging their parts.
Miss Annie told me she used to do some using for lungs and stuff. Did you have any recollection?
I didn't understand.
They used to use for lungs, some kind of an incantation or something?
Yeah, that I don't understand. And I just want to make sure we're on the same page. Yeah, I mean, it's probably folk medicine, probably, but it seemed to work. I never got a real good explanation from Miss Annie as to exactly how all that worked, but it sounded very interesting. If you have enough confidence in your practitioner, your recuperative powers kick in more. Now, I don't know if that worked on mules or not, but it seemed to work as well on mules as it did many of the patients she worked on, so maybe a common denominator there someplace, but.
Now, Emma had, besides Miss Annie, she had other children.
She did.
9 others.
9 other children.
Total of 10.
This is before cable television, so.
They didn't have anything else to do. So what happened to all of them? Are any of them still around?
Well, no, they lived pretty long lives, most of them. I think the last, Fred Gregory probably was the last of that line. He died probably 10 years ago.
Did she get educated beyond like high school,
Miss Annie?
Miss Annie?
I think music degree, is that,
She roamed somewhere and studied music. In Williston, I can't remember the name of the little town. It was just someone there that taught music.
It's something about the Chapin family. They're all artists somewhere down the
Oh.
line,
Yeah.
And do you know whether your grandfather, great-grandfather knew?
I don't know that. I just know that the Gregorys as a group, including our cousin in Columbia that's a Gregory, Gregory Pierce, or at least he seems to be a musician by contact, if not by genetics.
Right.
He's been very, very musical.
And he's still around.
He still is.
No, he's deceased.
Gregory
You
Pierce?
talking about senior?
No.
No, junior, yeah. I was worried about, we're on
But that's,
Facebook, we're on Facebook.
but that's not on the Chapin, that's not on
He's
the,
on the Gregory side.
on the
He's-
Gregory
yeah,
side.
yeah.
which is-
Peripherally, but I'm not exactly sure the connection, except that he was enough, his family thought enough of the Gregories to name him Gregory Pierce, so, and we're refer to each other as cousins, and we keep talking about getting together for lunch, but we haven't gotten around to it in a while. But, I think he was with the Department of Mental Health and also,
It was Greg Pierce is how he was known years ago. And he was on city or county council in town, but this years ago. But back to the Chapin side. I was just curious if they were musical, a lot of them were musical.
I think that's universally the case. I mean, I think, we didn't really have, radio and other things, and people did, home entertainment was their form of live entertainment. The Gregory family, Miss Annie's family, Santop, all those folks were musical, and they had one of these square pianos. But they all played different instruments, all sang, and just made their own music as a family.
I'm trying to remember if she had a piano like that in her house when I...
Not Miss Annie,
Now, this would have been in Santop.
in Santop. Now, she did play organ at the little Episcopal church in Eastover. It was interesting that she was the church organist, and the grandfather of one of my friends was the minister there, Jack Stansel. Later, Jack and I were at University of South Carolina when I was back working on my master's. Hung out. He was a number of years older than I was, so we weren't synchronized until college as far as friendships are concerned. Jack later passed, and his widow Sally is one of our dear friends. Although, kind of like Miss Annie, she's changing her name from Sally to Sarah, which is, she felt like sort of outgrew Sally, but
That's sort of a biblical background of changing our names.
So the connection with the piano is that she didn't have a piano in the house because she had an organ within easy walking distance of the house in the sanctuary of the little Episcopal church in Eastover, South
On
Carolina.
Van Bloken Street, and the only thing left of the church is the front wall. I think there was a fire, but it was after Miss Annie passed, because we had the funeral in the church.
That's right.
And it was hot.
And they had no air conditioning.
Yeah, there were two churches in that charge. One was Zion there in Town of Chapin in Eastover, and then St. John's Congaree, which was down the road a piece at Congaree.
It's where one of my great mentors is buried, Dr. Henry Lumpkin, is buried at St. John's on the Congaree.
But Miss Annie is buried at,
She's at the Presbyterian,
Pres-
old Richland Presbyterian.
As is Eppie, as is her husband, Teddy, right next to her.
Yeah, even though he died 6 years before she did.
Yeah.
Well, we are definitely interested in if there are things that you have written, memories or stuff like that, or if you have memorabilia of any sort that either now or at some time in the future, if you would be willing, we would love to have those to put in our museum once we have one to put it in.
Well, I'm constantly trying to go through and categorize and sort stuff. It just was all in a pile when I got it. And I work at it when I get the opportunity. But, what I can do is really start looking for more Chapin-oriented items in that, and there are a number.
Now, John and Martin, but when did you first know about Chapin, the town, or when you first visited?
The first time that I remember talking to my grandmother, I mean, really, she was a great Chapin supporter, you know, of not just her grandfather, but very quick to point out that, you know, the connection was the city of Chapin, town of Chapin also. She's very proud of that.
She was proud of it being named.
Very proud of, yeah.
I think at one time Martin must have owned about half of Lexington County.
Say again?
He owned a lot of property when he was.
True.
That's one of the stories we tell very sadly.
Well, exactly.
We save a lot of money on flowers for their graves. You know, we kept Eastover, but gave away Chapin, or still remember Chapin, and became Lake Murray, and most of Lexington. I don't know how much property is involved, but
Who would have ever thought we're up here on the river with rocks and red mud?
what is
A
there?
lot of the properties, Lake Murray bottom, you know, so.
Yeah.
So what, do you know when they sold the land in Chapin? And,
No, I don't, I'd have to.
yeah, I don't know either.
Well, my father has a hand-drawn map that shows the location of the house, the stream and all that on that. Try to run that down.
I think he and Mrs. Chapin had a lot to do with educating the youth in the town when they were here. And the only thing that gave anybody pause was that Martin was a Universalist, and we were either Methodist or Lutheran, one or the other. So that was a little bit.
I'll send you a copy of his eulogy, which is, I think, is outstanding.
That would be great. Yeah.
Yeah. It was published in a religious newspaper of some sort, but I can't remember if it was Universities or who it was.
It was so hard to keep things back in it. You know, I wonder about today when everything's online, whether we're going to have anything to fall back on later
That's a
on.
good question.
But back then, photography was kind of a rare thing, so it's hard to get pictures. Would love to have a picture of what the Chapin house was. We think, JJ, where'd you go? I did. No, who was it? Somebody did a drawing of the house. Was that you, or was that?
The old Chapin house.
Yes.
Yeah, there's one. I don't have a copy of it.
Somebody did that.
Where was the old Chapin house?
It was behind what is now Publix. It was a street called Water Street that went across, and
Is it one in here?
it's not. There's no picture because no. We did a history book when we were having our centennial, and I believe you all were in our parade that year. And,
You didn't tell us to bring candy.
didn't tell them to bring candy. I went.
Like,
Parade
we were
for what?
Grand Marshal for the parade, and
It was really fun.
which was a hoot. But the population was expecting us to follow the Mardi Gras tradition of throwing crows.
Candy.
And so.
And this was pre our Mardi Gras, because we've both now been to Mardi Gras many,
Lot of
many
times.
times, because we have family down there.
Don't
And we
feel
didn't
bad
know.
about it.
So we would just.
So we
yell-
blame you.
We just
George
yelled,
Bush
we just
didn't bring
yelled back,
candy either, so.
we just yelled back to the crowd that the mayor had it. Car behind us.
Yeah.
But we did have a wonderful
Had a
time.
great time.
We still have the magnet
That was.
that went on the side of the car.
Yep.
That was a good time. We've always.
Did you happen to bring the picture that Adrian gave you?
No, I didn't.
Tell them what you did.
Somehow or other I got to be, I don't know if I was doing it when you were here or not, but somehow I got in the habit of doing a character every year. And I don't know what I was that year, but I've done a little bit of everything.
You've been on one-man band in Chapin.
For a long time, But you drive around town now, it's not the same Chapin it was a few years ago. It's,
Boy, it isn't.
And one man can't do it.
unfortunately, we didn't save any of the old structures much, except the few that we have as historic buildings now. But we had the hotel, which Mrs. Chapin, I think, operated across the street from where now is Sonic. But she was telling me about the time when people would come and stop at the hotel, where she saw one of the town fathers crossing the railroad track and getting hit by the train and killed way back when. And so the train has always been important to us. It was really why we're where we are to start with. And it was very important to Martin's business. I think the Chapins, I don't know how many small towns there are in the nation. There are a good many that are named Chapin, and they all are very much like us. They're small towns on railroad tracks. And, there's one in several states.
Is there a Chapin, South Carolina, and a Burroughs Chapin connection? And
I don't know if the Chapin Company at Myrtle Beach, they had to have been related somehow or other, but
Do you know Jonathan at all?
I've never really researched that.
Yeah.
there's a connection between McKenzie's though and Pawleys Island area, or is there? Don't we have a relative that had a
Yeah, that was the Butler family.
right?
I'm sure they have to be related somewhere. As far as I know, all of the Chapins were related somewhere down the line to Deacon Sam.
Right.
And it's a different thing. When we started our webpage, we started getting a lot of traffic all over the world to our webpage, and I didn't really know why, but in the Spanish-speaking countries, the elite class are the Chapins. They thought that we were somehow connected with that. So,
Stan, would y'all explain who Deacon Sam is?
Deacon Samuel Chapin started in Springfield, Massachusetts, I think, didn't he?
yep.
He was one of the original.
One of the pilgrims.
The statue of Deacon Samuel is referred to as the Puritan. He was very much a Puritan.
Of course, they left England under persecution and immigrated. They were from Pagington, which is down on the Channel Coast.
And in our hallway is
Devonshire.
a picture of Deacon Sam,
Okay.
the statue that's in Springfield.
And
This-
from what relation? What relation is he to you?
8th, maybe 9th great-grandfather, 8th or 9th.
The statue itself of the Puritan was, I'm not, at the moment, I'm having a Martin moment, which I have a lot of, was done by a sculptor that did a whole bunch of really well-known statuary in the 1850s, 1870s.
Yeah.
So, but that's one of the better-known remaining statues or monuments. I'm trying to know what the guy's name is, and I'm sure it's easy to look
You
up.
can look it up.
Yeah.
Probably on the statue out there.
I'm sure it is.
I don't know what it is, but I don't know.
But particularly in New York City and Philadelphia and just major centers on the East Coast, a lot of it, he was a go-to guy if you really wanted an impressive-looking commemorative in bronze. You know, he was
I've always thought it was curious that how he got to be friends with the Summers family in Pomeria.
Not really sure, but they were very good
Which, I mean,
friends.
they were close friends, and he came down and got his plants and stuff, I think, from the Summers.
Well, they were in business together.
Yeah.
There was a notice in.
But, how did they travel back then all the way from Cortland, which is Is that on the Hudson River, one of the,
It's upstate New York.
yeah.
The Great Wagon Road, there's something in the back of my memory with Miss Annie's mention of them.
That's pretty much from Philadelphia south.
Yeah.
Yes, they traveled that way, so. But, yeah, they were obviously close friends. And all of them, really the whole family. apparently,
I
were
had
very
not realized they were in business together, but they had a lumber company apparently that failed in 1869
Oh, is that?
during Reconstruction. Yeah, there's a notice in the paper or something about they were gonna, sell off the proceeds. That
Well, I saw a notice about the lumber company being sold, but I was thinking that was the one here in Chapin that he operated.
I was assuming that it was too.
But maybe maybe the
I'll
Summers
go back
had
and look.
something to do
I'm not
with
even
it.
sure which paper I saw it in, just in researching, ran across it. And another one that during the state dispensary times, he had sold a piece of land somewhere in the commercial part to someone. Anyway, it was available, and someone had bought it with the purpose of building a dispensary there, liquor dispensary. And of course, the community was up in arms, sure enough, about it, and they had already put this guy off apparently a number of times. And someone went down to the courthouse in Lexington and looked it up, and Martin Chapin had included a provision in the deed to the property that no spirituous liquor could be dispensed from there. So,
Could be sold or consumed in Chapin, and for the longest time, the number one crime in Chapin was liquor law violations, public drunk.
that sounds more Puritan than Universalist.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't remember, the Universalists, I can't
I don't
imagine.
know.
I don't know, but he did have that provision that would be no liquor. And,
But there is that wooden store that's part of the historic district. They call that the old dispensary.
Yes, this was it, yeah, that's what we're talking about, really.
Someone evidently succeeded ultimately, I guess.
Well, people who were on Virginia Street, a lot of them came here from Virginia, they all had some association with the movement against liquor. Ms. Robinson was the head of the Christian Temperance Union, and where the dispensary finally located, the building's still there. Women had to walk on the opposite side of the street because they weren't allowed to walk on the same side of the street with the liquor store. That was way back here. I'm talking too much. You guys have got questions? John?
We, again, so much appreciate Chapin as we knew it 25, 30 years ago. JJ was the founder of the Chapin Historical Association back, I guess it's been almost 5 years now, JJ. But she wanted to preserve the history and reached out to Archives and History, was successful in getting 5 of their PhD types to come, and they were fascinated. And it wasn't just come in and leave, it was come in and stay for a half a day.
That's a good group of people down there,
Yeah.
State Archives.
And the head, you remember his name, JJ? Dr. Foley? Dr. Foley? Dr. Foley sent us a letter, just a few days later, and I think I sent that letter on YouTube. But how impressed he was, and that's what gave us the motivation to go ahead and reach out to them. We did a lot of grant raising fundraising that didn't work. They'd have something called Farmers Saturday, and we'd set a booth up and try to raise funds. We realized all of a sudden that the people that came to these events were not the people that cared about Chapin. They were the newcomers. And JJ and I, one day we worked 4 hours, we raised $14. The second time we did it, we worked all day, and we raised $17. And then we got on the grant idea, and it worked. But we so much appreciate what's here, and we want to preserve it and protect it. I wish that there were more to reach out to and capture, and with the Stan says, so much of it's gone.
In 1989, Chapin was a different place, and people were concerned about history then. We sold 4 printings of our history book. But now, I don't, I said, we might be the only ones who are interested in history right now. So.
Well, there was a time when Neva Watson, which really wasn't, she's not kin to Samuel Chapin, but Martin's mother's sister was Neva.
Yeah, okay.
Neva Watson and Bill Watson, and Neva was very interested for a time.
She was.
And maybe
Thinking it's a shame she's no longer with us,
I
because
know.
she'd be right here.
Absolutely, Neva did. I mean, they did originally build a cabinet and had some stuff in the library representing the Chapin family, and then the libraries got moved around and everything, and somehow or other that got taken away.
so you don't know where those things went.
All those things were preserved.
Right.
What are not in here are at the Lexington County Museum right now, and we'll come back here if we, at such time as we have an appropriate place.
Well, that's a relief to hear. We never knew.
Yeah, we certainly don't. I mean, that's very important to us.
Well, she was very involved for a period. I do remember that pretty
Neva
distinctly.
and Lula Seltinghouse, and they both are, I guess, both passed now.
And Neva only really, we just went to her funeral
Not long ago.
Yes. it's
right
been-
before COVID.
Yeah, within a year.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's,
She
But-
lived a great life.
yes.
She sure did.
Yeah. But, it's, I guess a lot of progress is progress, but we lose a lot in the translation, from being rural to being,
A lot of it's called progress.
Yeah.
Maybe a misnomer.
I don't know whether it really is progress or not. Irmo tried to do a book when Irmo had their centennial, and they couldn't get much interest in it because Irmo had already become that sort of a community where people really did care about things.
I think Chapin started differently than Irmo. Irmo was always a bedroom community to Columbia, whereas Chapin really started, people were living in Chapin, and I mean, certainly the reason that Neva moved out here was because it was a smaller community,
Yeah.
and she and her husband started the auto parts store,
Yeah,
and he was at the post office.
right.
Different reasoning. I've never known anybody that moved to Irmo because it really was a bedroom community. It was suburbia, if you
It was
will.
like you didn't know where Irmo ended and Columbia began.
Right.
So.
Right, just different reasoning behind its
Yeah.
start.
But we're in a situation now where people don't know if they live in Chapin or not. They got a Chapin address and maybe 8 miles out of town, But it's more and more of a challenge to keep that community spirit alive.
But you're still doing the parade, aren't you?
This year, I hope not. According to Nicole, we're going to have the biggest, best one ever. I don't know, we didn't have one last year
I
because
think that it'll be possible.
of the pandemic last year, we didn't have that. Nobody had much of anything last year, so.
I wanted to ask, well, first of all, let me introduce J.J. Casey, who came in later, and she actually started all this. She was kind of the impetus behind all of this that we've done. Worked very hard to get it done. But I also wanted to ask, did y'all visit Chapin when you were younger? Do you have memories of coming to Chapin and what Chapin looked like?
Going back to Neva. Neva, earlier in life, was with SCE&G and was a secretary and had enough vision to buy a lot couple lots on the lake. So she had a summer place there that we would come up and stay and visit and do reunions, because my mother's side of the family, whites, were mainly PD people. So Chapin was a really good place to meet because we were from upper state. They were from the PD, so we'd meet at Chapin, at Neva's place. And later, she built another home next to her lake home. I mean, the thing about Neva is that Neva lived all over the place. And she's thought nothing of starting all over again with furniture. Instead of holding on to stuff, like the rest of us. So she lived in a number of different places during her career in Columbia, but I had this summer home on Lake Murray.
The only thing permanent was Chapin.
So yeah, we would always get a dose of Chapin history from my grandmother in Eastover and another dose from our aunt here in Chapin.
Do you have any pictures of these ancestors?
Say again?
Do you have any pictures of these ancestors that
Yes.
you're talking about and where they live?
Do have some of those. It's
We'll talk politics another time.
Miss
But I
Annie.
just want to thank y'all for coming, and I have an abscess in my
Oh,
ear,
my
so
goodness.
I'm just not hearing very well.
You should come closer.
Well,
You can stay out. She'll get you, she'll cut you out.
That's all right. We're not.
I got started in this in March the 8th, 2015. So that's, well, my heart is here. And this, not in this building as much as the other building. But I first want to say thank y'all for taking your time out and getting here in all this weather. And thank you, JT and Stan and Miss Amanda, and of course Pat. I really don't have a schedule other than saying that I've got so much history here that I'm saying a lot of it has come from one of these two people right here, ancestors, of course, of Pat, whose boss name, and then Stan Sheehan. But I've just got so many things I want you, first of all, unless we run, I don't want us to run out of town before I ask you this. Did y'all get a chance? Did you introduce them to the cabinet when they came in?
Yes, yeah, we looked at the
I have the pictures. Before y'all leave, would you please see if you recognize any of those things in that cabinet? And I have pictures you can take. Just give us a little idea.
Okay.
The gentleman that's going to put the little notifications in the cabinet, he's an artist framer, so he's been very busy. But I really would like that information. And did you show them the nomination?
They have one.
I think they sent us copies.
They did.
I cannot find a picture in my supplies of the plaques, but did you tell them about the plaques on the building?
We just told them that we were putting them on. We didn't.
We have 13 buildings that's been declared as historic. And I've got just so many nice, wonderful pictures that you would enjoy looking at. Is how we got started in all this. And yeah, she's got it. But we have all but two of the gentlemen that are owners of these 13 buildings that have already put their plaques up. And Pat's son was the first one on their building that they put the plaque up. We're proud of that. But they all got started there at the old town hall. Did you have a chance to go down? You are
I'm John.
John, okay. Did you get a chance just to ride around at all in Chapin?
Yeah, I did, actually. When I had a little time to kill when I got here, so I just drove around to see how it looked now, because it's been, gosh,
Well, if
several
you
years
had
before I
time
spent a lot of
before you
time.
leave, you could come back. I know JT and I would have that probably too. I'd love to show you what was and how they decided on which buildings were historic. And I think that's very important, that your family would like to know about this. And that is where it all started.
I'll definitely be coming back, because I'm gonna be putting a package together for you. So,
That would be great.
Amanda's sitting back here. Amanda, you got any questions you want to ask?
No, I'm learning. Just, y'all are so much more knowledgeable than I am about the community. But I think it's really important that you get this down into posterity.
But you know why we call for all of this? Did you explain what the library needs or wants?
Well, I was just saying that the library and myself have expertise in ways of capturing, like you talk about the photos you have, and and scanning them and making them available in a variety of ways. But it's especially when you're looking at a museum, kind of in the meantime, we might be able to help preserve those and make them more accessible. And there are a couple different ways you can do that, but there's state programs, and that's videos. I don't know that I'd put this whole hour
No.
up. It's, but there are this is South Carolina history, and it's important to maintain it, and that's a place where the library can be folded in.
This is, was one of our first printouts. And how we introduce ourselves. And we'd like very much for y'all to join our association and be a part of that. And that is what I'm sorry, this is not you.
We didn't
This
talk
is
about
what Chapin
that
used to look
event.
like, and we would like for.
Oh, that's nice.
I'm glad you're there, that's lovely.
But it all started, of course, with you. I've got more of those.
It's very impressive.
Certainly is.
Well, that stands, that's our logo, but it, of course, it stands photography. And JJ is our writer and our publisher. He's just been working miracles. The other thing is, I've got, as I said, I get overwhelmed when I'm thinking, how can I explain why we're doing this? I can't, other than I moved here, I've been here about 22 years now. And I moved here, like you were saying a while ago, because you didn't think about what was going to be built beside you or who you were buying. And as you know now, house stays on the market maybe 2 days. I have a friend who just put hers on the market, not even on the lake, and it sold in 4 days. So that's what, it's not a little town like we bought in this.
Scary.
No. And we're disappointed in that. Yet, we want the downtown Chapin, the historical area, to grow. And we had where we just put it, just sort of a standstill right now. The buildings across from historical buildings are vacant. There are 4 offices. I went by there yesterday. And all those offices are empty. And they're not in the historical recognition, but they're right across the street from the ones who are, and that just hurts, doesn't it?
They will be filled up shortly.
Now, I know somebody, you want to send somebody, business person down here, but that's what we really would like to work.
Well, that's where economic development can come into play. I mean, that's how Juniper's got to be in Ridge Springs, was through economic development.
We went through a bad situation a couple of years back now with Ellett Brothers closing down, which was our biggest industry for so long. But we're
You've got a lot of building going on
developing.
on the main drags going in and out of town to the interstate. There, it used to be all woods.
Yeah. You can remember when Harvested was all woods too,
A lot of housing developments also.
Well, I noticed a lot of commercial parcels too, which probably doesn't help your downtown a lot, as far as business is concerned. And that's typical of everywhere, you know.
Are there any questions that you would like to ask us that, because I'm sure y'all have covered so much that we'll look at on the video. Phil, do you have any questions?
What's next, I guess? What are you gonna do next?
That's our big question. Go ahead, Jim.
We have a mayor that's going out of office in just a few months, and several of the town council members also. I talked with Mayor Knight last night up here at Town Hall, suggesting to him that we would like to have a dedication ceremony somewhere within the district, probably on Buford Street, before the change of the guard takes place. And he's very much supportive of that. We're in the process now of working with Archives and History to get the actual physical signs that will border the district. They'll be 24 by 36, and probably place one on the corner of Columbia Avenue and Clark Street, the other on Old Lexington and the Old Chapin Highway. But once those signs are up, it's the right dedication.
No kidding.
Longer term, we are working toward beginning to try to gain a grant to do a historical video history of Chapin. We're working for something we call Historic Harvest Weeks, which we'll reach out to the community for over a couple-week period, asking if they let us photograph and document artifacts that might be in their possession, which someday might come to the museum. The other thing that's important is trying to attract small businesses oriented toward historic tourism to locate in the district. Because if we could get the right mix of companies here, small companies here, we could make this district really stand out. So I sent you our work list, our couple-page plan. That's what we're up to. Got a lot of work to do. This is only the beginning.
We have one of also the original old flats, and y'all probably have one of the same. And this is what it used to look like. I mean, this was the first one. And then, excuse me, this one. And then this is where we are now. So we've come a long ways, especially helped to JT and now with Pat and just Stan. But this is just to give you a little preview of what we looked like when we were going. How long did it take us? We met how many times with Archives and History? At least 4 times. We went there, but how many times did they come here? Quite a few times, huh? 3 or 4. But this is, and before I rattle on too much, these were this is in the old town hall, and I have several, lots of pictures. And these were the mannequins that Mrs. Martin's dress, hat, and gloves were on. And we just gave them or loaned them to the Lexington Museum. And of course, we get them back anytime we want to. But we didn't have a safe place to keep them. But we took an inventory of everything in the old town hall that was just screwed around, and we have it inventoried in this, they are all in the little closet, we'll say, but it's a room. And we just want to get it out somewhere for the people to be able to come and see. So we thought if I hadn't discussed this with Amanda yet, but hoping that maybe we could take the camera and do some of that, if you think this would be important for of what the people would like to see that came from your family. And these, I just going to show you a picture of what this, I'll start off with the color one. These are just some of the things that are in the museum. But the gentleman that came down, after we interviewed, how many of them? 3 or 4 of these. we did all the information and the drive behind what buildings and why they would classify. This is the old merchandise building. You probably remember it as what?
The dispensary.
Drugstore, dispensary. What do you remember it as? It's been so many things.
Oh gracious, drugstore, I guess.
Yeah.
It's so, y'all, the table in there, and I'll show you a picture of it in there, is as large as this. It's the countertop. It is so unique. It still has the original shelves under where they put the groceries or whatever there was in there. But all of these houses, now I got this from this book. This special. I can't find my pictures of my good-looking people here. But we work hard by meeting with our mayor now, which is David Knight, which I'm sure you already maybe have heard about him. And he goes out of office the December. So yes, to reiterate what JT just said, is we want to finish this as much as we can before he leaves office. But these were the people that helped us inventory. We had one lawyer in there, and just, we inventoried. This is one of our councilwomen that's going home, the elected officials. But we kept records of everything that, this is our attorney. We kept records of everything, and once a year we were going to the Old Town Hall, and it was called the Community Service Day. And we put our hats on and put our little signs out and clean the yard, pull the weeds out of it. Now we have somebody that will cut the grass. But have y'all been, if you've been back behind those old buildings?
No, unfortunately.
Well, there's a lot of history back there, behind the old town hall and the old fire station. The jail is in the rear of the building. It was segregated, of course, one string, like bulb in each one and one toilet. I mean, people just, what? And one little peephole up in the top where they got it from. Behind it, on the back piece of the property, is an old fire pit that was made from some of the original bricks. And that's where they had the town hall meetings and 4th of July celebration. That's why they built the old fire station there, in case they had fire. Now, one of our projects that we have talked about, that we're hoping maybe we get some more members and some more grant monies. And if y'all have any connection at all with any grants that we could apply for.
Maybe.
Oh, wonderful.
Well, the state library.
Well, we have the Grantsmanship Center, which I'm sure Stan knows about, that is the place you go when you want grants. You go there to find some sources to help fund your grants. I can give you a name. She'll teach you how to do your own research. But there's a South Carolina Foundation directory. I don't know, maybe it's online now, I don't know, I've been retired for 10 years, so.
Well, here's our librarian, so.
Yeah, I
You
mean,
know Amanda?
I know all the things.
Yeah, she
I know all
knows,
the
Dawn, yeah, just call Dawn.
Yeah, I mean,
And
we got.
Dawn can facilitate your research for you. But also, I mean, just the fact that you're working with archives and history makes
Is
you a real step ahead.
Yeah.
And getting that marker done is certainly very important and a good milestone for you all. Yeah, see, I was working at the State Library when archives was next door in that mausoleum building. So used to know a lot of the people, know no one anymore, other than Eric Anderson, I think, is he still the director?
Kind of got.
Yeah, but we've all gotten out of it.
We had Tracy Power who was with State Archives many, many years.
He was the marker person.
He's our neighbor. He's next door to us.
And actually, he works at Newberry College,
History department.
history professor at Newberry College.
Yep.
Yeah.
Very nice fellow.
I've heard him speak
And
a
very,
couple
very
times.
informative, and I think active in the history of Newberry now.
Yep.
Very committed to that. He's in charge of the archives at Newberry. Not that that has any connection to the Chapins. But
And Amanda, do you have anything in the library at all on the introduction to who helped make all these decisions here with the historic district? Because we got page after page, of
I am not aware that we
information.
do. I know we have what you recently gave me, which we're gonna add. I have, most what we have are family histories or published histories of kind of the area. So, I mean, we can certainly add information.
I'd like to show you, he was a nice looking man, and JT really instigated most all of this. How many people did we interview? 3?
I can't tell you a lot.
And it cost a lot of money, of course, as you know. In fact, explain a little bit more now about the community foundation. Pat's husband, what year was that? We had fancy that, ladies. And they started, you tell them.
Oh, well, it's possible, in fact, we did get a grant from the Greater Chapin Community Foundation, which is under the auspices of the Central Carolina.
that was, yeah.
Yeah, they are actually the fiscal
Right.
responsible. And so we've gotten a grant from them.
And Town Hall gave us, they started us off by how much?
Town Hall matched the Archives and History grant of $5,000, so we had $10,000.
Well, and then there's the South Carolina Humanities.
And that's what you got, right?
Yeah.
Philo Mountain.
Yeah, when
They
you
got
get
all
big
that
time, then you can go
information.
with any age.
Now, humanities is a good source, if they have money left after all this.
Well, I think we
Well,
got,
I asked her any questions and I jumped right back in with my
okay.
southern
Well,
accent.
let me ask, you talked about photography a couple times. What are you guys doing for photography, of documenting stuff that you can then submit for grant consideration?
He's the photographer, Stan.
That's good.
Here's your
That's good.
Well,
photographer.
we have to.
So Stan has.
Stan is our professional.
Good.
I just love this little outfit, but,
Well, once we were talking about doing video, we're gonna have to get a professional come in and do that.
Yeah.
Have you seen Little Mountains? They did one, and it's pretty nice. I think they spent about $20,000.
You can
And
find
that would
that
be
on
great.
YouTube.
Yeah.
But, especially if you do programming around it, God, going back to my
Please do
library.
programming at the library around
Yeah,
it.
I mean, the thing is, if you create the grant where it's really a program and the end result is the video, that's when you'll get your money.
That's right.
Not do a video, no, that's not,
Right.
the end result is
Mhm.
enriching our community
Mhm.
through program.
we
You know
have,
that.
just to bring you up to speed on where we are, the association, bank account, and by the way, it's over 7,000, yeah, it just came yesterday. We have over 7,000 in the bank. It's drawing no interest, but what we have that put aside for, we hopefully, is the signage that JT was telling you about.
Yeah. That's what one of the grants was for. So, yeah,
Okay.
it
Well,
was-
town started off
Well,
with,
so it has to be earmarked.
Yeah.
If the grant money was for the signs, then you have
Right.
to you have to buy the signs with that money.
Right.
but what I found, and like JT was telling you, the jar with the sign on it at the function fundraisers didn't get us anywhere. But you know what I think we found out, or I think I realized, they weren't local people at those functions. They were all, foreigners. So,
Well, they have Midlands Gives, and I don't know if it goes this far out, but there is
It
certainly.
does.
Yeah.
All right, I
It
hope
does.
that you included your organization and
We've got
set out
this
some
coming
Next
publicity.
year.
You'll have to wait till next year now, it
Yeah.
just happened, but, it was such an easy way to give money. And Midlands Gives, which is one day where you can give to everybody using one credit card, and it's just, you plug in where you wanna give, so, you certainly should make sure that your organization is included and promote it.
They have our name now, and next year.
Next year.
We're also looking for someone to help us out with our website. We have one, but it's not up to speed. Were you able to get that?
Get a teenager.
That's really what you need. You need, well, I kid. Well, the website is part of the Chapin Town website, correct?
Right, it is.
So the question is, what kind of access are they gonna allow you to have, and what, everything's gonna have to go through the town to update. It's not just a matter of plugging a teenager at it.
Yeah.
What about the Facebook?
Facebook's great. It
I'm
is,
not even
I,
on Facebook myself.
us,
so-
it's
But it's a
definitely,
way of getting,
yeah.
it's just another way of promoting
I know,
your
but
cause.
I'm
And
scared
it's-
of it. I'm old fashioned.
it's getting to be old fashioned, so,
It is.
it
It is.
but it's a good
Well,
place.
how about Instagram?
Yeah, I think Facebook's where your people are the people who are interested are at. I think it's the right platform, and it's where you can put a lot more. Here's what we did. You can put a snippet of this. You can put a snippet of we're going to be doing a dedication, and here's a sneak peek of the sign and Midlands
Well,
Gives.
I
and-
found too that one of the things that I enjoy is, from where I was born and raised, way back when in Bethesda, Chevy Chase, Maryland, and there's lots of old pictures that are posted, and people say, so-and-so was in charge of it. It is a way of getting at information.
You're absolutely right, and
Chapin's very social media centric.
Yeah.
There's a lot of activity on lots of Chapin.
Yeah.
So people are looking for information there.
Martin, you were saying about the photography. Are you available?
I am. I've been a professional photographer since the '60s. Every time someone's check clears, but I've got a lot of good equipment, and more importantly, I've got a very good eye. But I'd be happy to help that
You didn't
way.
know that, did you?
Good. Well, I'm an artist, but I'm not much of a.
Yeah,
I
on the
love to
back of
do
his
it.
card is one of his pictures.
Yeah, I don't know if I gave
Yeah,
cards.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah.
You did.
Well, I'll deal cards out again to anybody who didn't get one.
Yeah, you probably didn't get one, but I.
It's all right. I'm an artist, and I want to present someone. I only have the one, but that was a piece of my art, was the first 100 years of Chapin. So, of course, it's Martin Chapin, the old merchandise building, and a couple. But it needs to go somewhere permanently.
Well, the Chapin Museum, of course.
Yeah.
The Chapin Museum, all of us, well, I'll just speak for myself since you all will laugh. We're trying to downsize.
Wonderful, and we're trying to get a building for a museum. We
That's right.
have the building, we have the two buildings, and it's 104 and 106.
So what do they
Beautiful
need?
street.
Do they need renovation inside and air conditioning and humidification?
Climate control.
Climate control.
Right.
So those are the things. So you need an infrastructure grant.
Yeah.
Actually, we need a.
Pat, tell them a little bit about what you're
We don't have a big enough building to be what we need.
It's tiny.
Yeah,
I mean, that building's tiny.
It's tiny.
Yeah.
And
It's too
that
small.
bathroom is not ADA. I was looking at the
It's
pictures.
it's too small for what we were thinking of using.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, it needs to be
We have
preserved.
looked at the old railroad depot, but it's now in terrible shape. And it would cost us more to repair and fix it up than to build a building. And besides which, we don't have a real good place to put it. And you can't just build a museum, put stuff in it, shut the door, and not have it available. for
No,
people to
no,
come. You know, so we have to work out that detail.
And you're at a point where you're not big enough.
Yeah.
to do all of that.
Right.
So it's
That
still in
was
the
just-
collection mode
That's
until
it,
it becomes big enough that you
That's
can
right. That's right.
add
Right now,
staff.
we're just trying to preserve and get
Yep.
committed to things that we would need when we get to that point.
And especially pictures and things like
Well, we've got a whole room full of everything that's been collected through how many years with you and Adrian? 10?
Well, we got
Almost.
some things, but we need a whole lot more than what we got. And,
So ideally, in your mind, what do you want the museum, I mean, tell me specifically what types of things you want, what are you trying to do? What are you trying to accomplish?
see, but we had been given things that ranged everything from documents to pictures to farm implements to.
Pianos to spindles.
I think collection development is a key
It was like,
issue
we
here.
really had too many, I mean, we need to zero down to.
I have a
what do
question.
want?
Should we still be recording all this?
No,
No.
no.